1051. My name is Michelle Wu. I'm chair of the Committee on Planning, Development, and Transportation, and I'm joined by my colleague, Councilor Kim Janey. I want to remind everyone this is a public hearing being recorded and broadcast live on channels Comcast 8, RCN 82, Verizon 1964, as well as streaming on the City of Boston website. We will take public testimony if anyone decides to join us. And again, this is docket number 1051, message and order to declare surplus city-owned former transportation department parcels with vacant land and transfer the care, custody, management, and control of said property to the Public Facilities Commission. The land is located at 40-50 Warren Street in the Roxbury District, Ward 8, parcel 02550000. This matter was sponsored by the mayor and referred to the committee on July 10th, 2019. So I will, before we dive in with the panel, I'll just give Councilor Janey, whose district this parcel resides in, the chance to give an opening statement, and then we'll get right to it. Okay. All right. Donald, if you would please introduce yourself and the panel, and feel free to make your statements.
Good morning, councilors.
Good morning.
My name is Donald Wright. I'm the Deputy Director of Real Estate Management and Sales in the Department of Neighborhood Development. I'm here with my colleagues, William Epperson, Assistant Deputy Director, Real Estate Management and Sales, Joe Backer, Development Officer, Neighborhood Housing Division, and Senior Development Officer, John Fairback, in the Neighborhood Housing Division. We're here today before you to discuss the surplus of the municipal parking lot located at 40-50 Warren Street in the Dudley neighborhood of Roxbury. The site was included in the plan, Dudley Square Planning Initiative, a 2-year-long community process that was developed in order to solicit community input to guide the request for proposals for the publicly owned vacant parcels in Dudley Square. From that process came the understanding that this approximately 8,300 square foot parcel was underutilized as off-street parking and a desire to redevelop the site as a mixed-use development. The parcel was included in a request for proposal released in July of last year. Two proposals were received. Both proposals to redevelop the site as mixed-use developments. The proposals were reviewed collaboratively with the community through the Project Review Committee established consistent with the Roxbury Strategic Master Plan, including members from Roxbury neighborhood associations and other individual local residents and business owners. The Off-Street Parking Facility Board voted this property as not required for public off-street parking purposes on July 23rd, 2019. The Public Facilities Commission voted the transfer of this property to the Boston Transportation Department to the Department of Neighborhood Development on August 14, 2019. Should the City Council vote to declare this property surplus, D&D can present to the Public Facilities Commission a recommendation for tentative developer designation, allowing the formal selection of a developer to take place and move the vision for this site closer to reality. We're here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. So everyone else will just be available for questions?
Yes.
Okay, great. Councilor Janey?
Thank you so much. I want to say thank you to the panel before us. Thank you, Mr. Wright, for that opening presentation. So this, just so that people are clear, anyone who's watching, this is currently a parking lot.
Yes.
It is located on Warren Street, and it's right next to Palladio Hall, across the street from Frugal Bookstore. Is that correct?
Correct.
Wonderful. And how many parking spaces are in this parking lot? Anyone know?
25. Yeah.
25 parking spaces. And this is one of, my understanding, this is one of 4 parcels as part of the initial Plan Dudley process. So one of the 4 parcels that are being disposed. And this one is a transfer from BTD to D&D, yes, so that it can be developed.
Yes.
Right, okay. And so out of the 4 parcels in Dudley Square that are currently being discussed in terms of development, 3 out of those 4 are parking lots, yes?
Correct.
This is one of those 3?
Well, two are 40-51 and 2147 are parking lots.
And which one is that one?
This is 40-50.
Yeah, so B2 is parking, Blair and Haley House is parking, and this one is parking.
B2, yeah, temporary parking.
Okay.
I understand.
All right.
I got you.
All right.
Yes.
And I guess And I'm not the big parking advocate. People know that. I think it's important that we look at transportation more holistically and that we accommodate different modes of transportation. But I am mindful that for many in this area, Dudley Square, particularly business owners, being a commercial district, that parking has been a challenge for many of the business owners, and that many of the business owners and their customers, as well as their workers and residents who actually live in Dudley, are concerned about the shrinking of parking, available parking in the area. And I'm just wondering, and I understand that you may not be the appropriate people to speak to this because you're just talking about the transfer of the land, but I do want to understand what the plans are to accommodate the concerns or to address the concerns of business owners around parking in Dudley Square. So with the new development that comes, are we asking, like, is it part of the RFP process? Are we asking people to think about transportation at all?
I would say yes. Part of the RFP process, what we did say was that we were not going to take the parking lot offline. What we required through the RFP, and John, please correct me, is that any selected developer would still have to maintain parking and making sure that it was still accessible to the business district until we were moving into the development phase.
And once we're post-development phase, so once there's something new there, I guess depending on what is being proposed, some development teams will propose parking for the public and others may or may not, depending on what they're, and that's pretty much how it's left. Okay. Okay. I guess for me, I just want to know that, and it's not just this parcel or the other 3 parcels. Right now, we've got millions of dollars being invested into Dudley. There are construction vehicles all over the place now doing the streets. And so I think, you know, making sure that there is some available parking for business owners is important, and working with the development teams to accommodate the needs of the residents and business owners in the district would be important. And I just would want to be on the record of having us think about that as these parcels are coming offline and not going to be available for residents or business owners to park in anymore.
Thank you, Councilor Janey. So could the team just summarize how many, you said there were 2 proposals so far that have been weighed, and has one been chosen, or what's the process like for formally designating?
Hi, Councilor. John Feuerbach, myself, Donald, Joe have worked pretty closely with the Roxbury Strategic Master Plan Oversight Committee, and in turn created form a project review committee. Of the 4 sites, we have the Project Review Committee made recommendations to the Oversight Committee on June 3rd for all 4, including this. Since that day, June 3rd, the Public Facilities Commission have designated as developers a cruise development for 135 Dudley, Madison Park for 75-81 Dudley, and for 2147, it was a combination of New Atlantic and Dream. We're holding this one until hopefully we have the surplus approval, and then we would move to an October developer designation for this, and it would be a team of the New Urban Collaborative.
And what's the proposal for this site in terms of square footage and use and other
24 units of rental housing, but on the ground floor, they've got some interesting aspects. One of the key elements of their request for proposal was to activate Warren Street. So if you look at the ground floor, you have ground floor retail. If you look to the right of the building, and the councilor mentioned Palladio Hall, there's what is considered an alleyway right now, but it's actually going to be activated to become an arts promenade entry to the rental units. But it'd be 24, of which 66% would be affordable. They have some, I think, Joe, help me here, it's like a co-worker space.
Two of the floors in the building would be devoted to a mix of residential and co-working space. And the first floor of the building will be a mix of retail, a restaurant, the residential entrance, and the co-working space as well.
So 3 floors total.
It's 6 floors total.
Oh, okay.
And the residential floors would be 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, with co-working space mixed in on 2 and 3.
I see, okay. And so just to confirm on Councilor Janey's previous questions, right now, what is the proposal for parking and publicly accessible parking with the final, with this 6th floor configuration?
The request for proposal did not call for any required parking.
Okay.
The request for proposal, which came out of the long community process that Donald outlined and was ultimately approved for release by the Roxbury Strategic Master Plan Oversight Committee, was looking at more of a district-wide approach. So, for example, of the 4 sites, we're looking at approximately, right now, a little over 300 parking spaces. I think 135 Dudley is going to be carrying more than a need for the units at that development. So we'll be working with the developer, with the counselor, other residents and merchants to coordinate the square parking to hopefully through 135 Dudley. But the other sites would have parking that would meet the needs of those developments.
Okay, great. I mean, the 2 of us are on the same page about that, but I just want to make sure that we're equipped to answer questions that we'll get. Is there anything else? What did you, and 66% affordable at what AMI levels?
So there, in the original proposal, there were 8 units that were at 50% or below, and 8 units that were at 80% of AMI or below.
Okay. And is there any other, given that this is currently publicly owned land, are there any other deed restrictions or any other covenants, anything going into this building?
It's primarily for the housing, in this case, it'll be rental units. On some of the other sites, we have a combination of rental and home ownership. So we'll have the deed restriction or covenant on those. I don't know of any other restrictions on the commercial.
So just so I,
sorry, the development team is interested in and has proposed to provide below market commercial rents, but I don't think there would be any restriction.
And
Okay.
that would be on 40, on this site here, 40-50 Warren.
okay, and just so I'm totally clear, and I'm sorry, this is such a basic question. So let's say the development team has this building for 10 years, and then they decide that they want to sell it to someone else, or then is there any requirement to continue it at 66% affordable for every future buyer?
That's what the loan agreement would have, that's right.
Okay. Anything else that we should know about the proposal or the process?
I think one thing that's worth noting is the Oversight Committee with the PRC emphasized green building. So all of the proposals, not just this, are doing their best to achieve LEED Platinum. On this one here, I believe they're going to be preparing for solar on the roof. So that is consistent with, I know, the council's goals and the administration's goals for the carbon neutral by 2050. So that was something that was very important for us as we reviewed the proposals, but also for the Project Review Committee and the Oversight Committee. The other thing was diversity, diversity and inclusion. Called out for in the request for proposal were teams that had minority and women-owned participants, not just as subcontractors, but actually as team leads on the team. And this one here does have a good representation of that. And I think that was, when we had 2 developer presentations, public meetings at the bowling building, you could tell that based on people who were making presentations. So that was something that it was called out for in the request for proposal. And I think this team and also some of the other teams really responded well.
Great. And is this related to any urban renewal issues at all?
No, this parcel was previously tax proposed. It was tax proposed in 1989.
Okay.
At which point it was transferred to the Boston Transportation Department in 2000. So
Got
no,
it.
it is not associated with urban renewal.
Okay. Am I missing anything? Councilor Jamie?
Just a couple of other questions, and thank you for highlighting the language in the RFP. I would say of the 4 parcels that come under Plan Dudley right now, 3 of the 4 have very diverse teams, which is very exciting to see the city move in that way. So thank you for that. I have a question just around engagement, and I know there was a long process with a lot of community engagement in terms of developing the RFP. I know when the RFP was available and teams were, responding to the RFP, there was then 2 meetings separated by, I think, a snowstorm, but 2 meetings where the public got a chance to hear from the teams. So I know there's been that engagement, but my question really is regarding the abutters. So there are businesses right there on Warren Street who had no idea that this parcel was going to be developed. In their mind, it's parking for people who may want to shop in their business. And so they didn't get any, even though there's been this process, they didn't get, I think, a letter that says, hey, across the street or next door, this is going to happen over the next 18 months or the next 2 years or whatever the time frame is, so that they could be engaged in a different kind of way. So I'm wondering, what is the requirement or process that we undergo to engage immediate abutters beyond doing a lot of noticing? Because I know you've done that. I've been at these meetings. But for residents or business owners who are direct abutters, are you following the same protocol that we would for like a ZBA? When a project's going before the ZBA and the Office of Neighborhood Services kind of does outreach to the abutters, is it a similar process?
Yeah, I mean, we have our formal community notification procedures, so this is considered a major development site, so we mail notices to residents, and we have that, Councilor. It's unfortunate to hear that because the Oversight Committee did its own noticing regarding its meetings, and this was a topic of on many agendas. The BPDA has had its website, and I know we work with them closely to get the word out.
Yeah.
Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services, we work with them closely to make sure that whatever meeting notices we had, we're sending them out. And then we were sending them out by paper mailing, but also by emails.
Just to people on the list. So I guess, again, the question is for actual abutters who maybe live in that block.
Abutters,
or who have own
abutters,
businesses in that block. And so if I go to the Oversight Committee meeting as a business owner, perhaps I'm aware, but if I don't attend those meetings as a business owner, how does that business owner then get informed?
At a minimum, our mailing procedures
would have captures
the abutters.
Okay. Maybe it was lost in the mail. All right, thank you for that.
At a minimum, just to clarify, it would have been a 300-foot radius to all addresses within that property. So it certainly could have gotten lost, but for every meeting that we would have held, mailing to all property addresses within 300 feet of that parcel.
Yeah. And if I may add, just a bit, Council, we did have the pleasure of a business owner within Dudley Square participate in the PRC Project Review Committee.
Excellent.
Actually, we had a couple, when you think about it. Yeah. I could think of, I don't need to put any names, but there was one who's actually been on the main streets working with Joyce. And then there's also a direct abutter right next door to 2147 who was participating with us pretty actively.
Wonderful. That's it for me. Thank you.
My last question was just on the what the city is getting. What was the bid amount, or what the other benefits are to the city? Just a cash payment, or?
The bid amount in the proposal is for $100, and the proposal includes the 66% affordable housing units, as well as the arts promenade and the public benefits there.
Okay, great. So just $100 in terms of the amount. What were the other proposals, if you could quickly summarize?
For this property
Yes.
or for the other properties?
For this.
For this property.
parcel.
There's one other eligible application from the New Estra Community Development Corporation. Theirs was for 41 units. Their offer price, I believe, was more than 100. I would have to look, but I believe it was $900,000. But in our underwriting process, we actually would have clarified with them that because they would have applied to the city for funding for those income-restricted units, they actually cannot we cannot accept an acquisition of above $100, I believe.
Essentially, the city, if we would have accepted that proposal, we would have been giving them the $900,000 of acquisition funds to give back to us. So it would not have been a real $900,000 of acquisition.
Great. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate this, and we'll summarize this to counselors at our meeting tomorrow. And really appreciate you taking the time to join us for the hearing.
Great.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so this will conclude our hearing on docket number 1051 in the Committee on Planning, Development, and Transportation. This hearing is adjourned. Oh, I forgot to call the public testimony. Neil, did you want to testify? Okay.